Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Clinic Gym Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Josh Satterlee, and I am joined today by Dr. Brandon Steele. Brandon, how are you?
I'm doing excellent. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, man. I really appreciate you spending some time with us. I know you're in between patients and got to get back to it, but I wanted to have you on because can you give me a little bit of history of the name and the history of your company that is doing everything it can to make chiropractic the best profession it can be?
I don't think anybody's ever asked me how we came up with the name. So that might be, that's actually a better story.
All right.
There's a saying as far as horse riding, are you going to cowboy up or are you going to lay there and bleed?
Yeah.
So I heard that quote and it turned into ChiroUp. It started off as a joke, but then it turned into a name. But it has a lot to do with chiropractic. We get a lot of things thrown our way when it comes to legislation, when it comes to schools, when it comes to perceptions. And you can take it, you can lay it on and bleed, or you can move on and create a success out of yourself.
Man, it means a whole lot more now that you've told me that story. I love it.
Yeah, so that's what ChiroUp is. It was not designed. It's a program designed for chiropractors to make your life a little more efficient, a little more effective as far as clinically. But it was designed for me. It was designed on a piece of construction paper. My partner and I just wanted to have some more standardization in our practice. When we treat anything musculoskeletal, to make sure that we're taking a pretty focal approach at it and to say, you know what, this is impingement syndrome of the shoulder.
Uh-huh.
What can we do about it? What are the treatments? What are the patient education pieces? What are the rehab pieces? And then how can we make it standardized for myself and the other two chiropractors we have in our clinic? And ChiroUp is just the way we do that on a day-by-day basis.
Awesome. So this was the old business proposition and made something that because you were sick and tired of the way it was going for you, and it turns out you weren't the only one.
You know what? It's so funny. And one of the quotes that we had early on in practice, or early on in creation, is everybody, almost every single person that ever signed up for it was, oh my God, I had this idea in chiropractic school. I just, couldn't do it. And then it turned into, our slogan was ChiroUp because you didn't have time or money to do it yourself. And, but it really, everybody's got, time when they first start out in practice. And unfortunately, we just don't have enough money when we first start out in practice. And then once you get a little busier, you have enough money, but you don't necessarily have time.
Yeah.
It turned at us, we got kind of tired of trading time for money as far as in practice. We spent a lot of time educating people on the same stuff we educated the last patient on. And the same rehab program for your Achilles tendinopathy, I'm going to give to the next guy. So we could standardize a lot of things. Not everything is standardized, but there's a lot of things that can save you time and energy in practice.
It's funny because, I use some business automation software in my business. And one of the providers put on this great event and he said, automate the things that you can't do as a human, but never automate a hug. And that always sticks with me. Like when you standardize, like, oh, this is the Achilles rehab and it's standardized and you're not searching for it, it allows you, in my experience, and love to hear your opinion, but it allows you to deliver the human piece at a much higher level because you're not feeling like, oh, I'm tired, I'm sick. Oh my God, this is the 8th Achilles tendon I've seen in the last week, and oh, it's so boring. And why don't these people understand? And it's like, no. We have this plan. Now just be the most incredible human being you can be, and they'll appreciate it.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And the reason I love that is because people take this evidence-based paradigm to a T, and most people don't build very successful practices generally from the people I talk to because they're so focused on the nuances of remembering all the rehab protocols or the best treatments for every single condition. You can't do that. That's not possible. You'll drive yourself nuts. But if you have at least a recipe to start from and you can get that patient started, then you can focus on that one or two things. Or sometimes, if you've been in practice enough, just give the patient a hug because that's what the person needs at that time. But focusing on the specifics with each patient and then making sure that you have an idea or a pathway with that patient that is a little more uniform and evidence-based, and then to allow yourself the freedom to go in and nitpick the pieces, the hobbies, the habits that person has, and focus on those one or two things that are special about that patient.
Nice. So going back to ChiroUp, my understanding is these rehab protocols are evidence informed. There's evidence that you guys have backing up every one of them, but you're also blending that with here's your experience of what actually human beings are like. And also it appears to me from the outside looking in, like, here's also what's easy for the doctor to deliver, right? I mean, there's always like research that says, oh, you should do this. And it's like aqua therapy, submerge the patient up to their neck. It's like, okay, so you just, where am I going to put this 12-foot deep pool? Like, you know.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up. That was one of the biggest complaints that we heard in the very beginning of ChiroUp, and we still hear from schools a little bit, is that you kind of make it a little bit too easy if you have cliff notes for every single condition. But I do believe you have to have those cliff notes. You have to have a standard of care. So what we have done and what we continue to do on a monthly basis is to go through 97 or 98 conditions that we have and to pull out new information. So it's a constant literature review of evidence-based information, meaning I can actually pull that sentence out of an actual research article,
Okay.
citation. So there's very little wiggle room on those recommendations, meaning we have evidence to back those up. However, that is just a recommendation. And what you probably recognize, and anybody that's been out in practice for more than 5 years, there's the best, and then there's what gets it done. So you have to make sure that the person used their experience, used their training, using the tools and the space they have to get that person out of pain. So that's where evidence informed comes in. So we have a really neat system of doing that. That we have about 1,000 to 1,100 people around the world who use ChiroUp and use our standardized diagnoses, which are ICD-10 diagnoses. And then we can actually measure their clinical results. So we can see everybody making those diagnoses, but we can also see their 30-day outcomes where we can say, you know what, Dr. Satterlee sees rotator cuff syndrome 4 times. Everybody's 100% better at the end of 30 days. And we can see your satisfaction scores, meaning they're all 90%, they rate their care as highly satisfied, and they want to recommend you to a friend. So then we can take a look at the end of each year and see which providers get the best outcomes. And then we have them teach the rest of our subscribers a webinar on what to do differently. And that's how we merge evidence-based with evidence-informed, which would be that video. And then also, obviously, the seminars and the education, then you merge all those things together, and that's what you do to patients.
All right. That last little 2 minutes should have got a lot of people warm and tingly inside about what you just offered them. So before I forget to do this later, how can they become part of ChiroUp? How can they get it?
ChiroUp is something that is devised by chiropractors. And I want to say that, and I want to bring up a point that we've all, as chiropractors, have signed up for a service or a product or an idea or a seminar series, and then realized it wasn't that great of an idea. And so sometimes when you get a really good idea, you're like, oh, I want to jump on that. And then you get locked into something you really don't want. So what we've done is developed a reoccurring system where we give it to everybody for the 2 weeks for free to try it, to implement it in your practice. And then we have 4 people here that do their best to make sure that we understand your goals and what you want out of your practice. I want new patients. I want more MD referrals. I want higher patient satisfaction scores. I want whatever it is, better SEO, more Facebook interaction. And then what we do is we make sure that you understand how ChiroUp can do all those things for you in those first 2 weeks. And then after that, it's a software as a service, meaning you sign up for it. It's at ChiroUp.com, and you start using it. If you find that you like it, next month you're going to want to buy it again. If you don't want it, then you call us and you cancel it, and we cancel it. There's no contracts, there's no commitments, there's no setup fees, no termination fees. We're sick and tired of those kind of companies. We want to be the company that people find value in. And if you get value, you'll stick with us. And our retention rate is above 98%. So the people who do use it, use it. The people who sign up for it and they never use it, well, they're gonna cancel at some point.
There's no way that they dive in there and consume it and go, this isn't worth it. I mean, you'd be like saying, I know I could be a great chiropractor, but I just want to be middle of the road.
Exactly. So we try to make sure it's a very fair price, and a very fair program, and hopefully we meet everybody's goals. And if we don't, we're not the right company for you.
And so the pieces of it, so you have the education, which you just talked about, right? You offer these regular webinars for people, whatever you want to call those, your bright stars in the community about certain conditions.
Yes, they give expert advice. Yeah, per condition.
And then you also have go into the. I didn't know you guys do anything with the MD referrals or the SEO.
So I don't take credit for a lot of stuff, but I think this one I may take a little bit of credit for. But it wasn't my idea, but the invention of the product was. So my partner said, that we have a problem in chiropractic, and that is that the only thing that we see are medical failures.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, and I was like, you're right. You know, a lot of times people will come in and say, you know what, I've tried my other doctor, my real doctor. I've tried acupuncture and massage, and I don't really know what else to do. I'm going to try you. You know, you're my last resort or what have you. And our issue with that is a lot of times that all we do is see medical failures. What do you think the medical doctors see? They see all of our failures.
Chiropractic failures. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we all
Yeah.
fail. There's nothing we're going to do to solve that problem. However, what if every medical doctor saw each one of our successes?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if every chiropractor in the US sent an actual initial report to the MD saying, hey, saw Dr. Satterlee, he's got impingement syndrome of the shoulder. I'm going to see him 6 times over 2 weeks. I'm going to do some myofascial release, some rehab, and some manipulation, and I expect him to be 75% better. That's great. You know, I highly recommend everybody do that. However, what if at the end of that, we send him another report and say, hey, Dr. Smith, I saw Dr. Satterlee. He's 100% better after 6 visits. He's out of my care. He's back in yours. And that doctor, because you're going to fax it over, it has your logo, your name, and a positive result associated with it. What happens when that doctor gets 20, 30 reports from you on a yearly basis? They're going to say, you know what? I know somebody who can treat rotator cuff syndrome.
Yeah, I love it. And so that builds the relationships with the MDs or the primary care providers, whatever they're going for. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because like I actually had an early mentor tell me, remember your successes are not walking my office, but your failures often do. And I was like, never thought about that. And he said, what's your opinion of epidural steroid injections? I was like, they don't work. He's like, actually, they work often. Who walks in your office is the people who had them and then it didn't work. He said, because the people who did work, they're out riding their bike and playing golf. They're not coming in your office. I was like, that's a great point. So, and then what about the SEO part? I mean, cause you know, chiropractors are busy and they're seeing people all the time. There's not a lot of time to do the back end, you know, optimization of your website and make sure it links back to this. So you guys help out in that way as well?
Yeah, so we have somebody who helps out with that a lot as far as consulting. And
Okay.
she felt there were 2 things that really need to happen. As far as if you had to stop and drop and just do only 2 things, what would they be? And when it comes to your website, it's Google reviews. And I don't care how good or bad your website is. I don't care if it's optimized or backlinks or what have you. You need Google reviews. And whether you like it or not, that has to get done. So we have the ability for each one of our condition reports, whenever you send that communication out, that those exercises out to those patients and patient education, that they actually have your Google link on their email. All they do is have to click it. It automatically pre-populates from any kind of device, mobile device, desktop, what have you, and pulls up your site, 5 stars. All they have to do is click post or actually leave a comment. And then we also have the ability when somebody's leaving your office and they say, hey, I saw Dr. Steele, I'm feeling much better. Great, Josh. Could you give him a Google review? And then we can, through ChiroUp, send them a link. And they don't need to enter anything. They don't need to search for anything. It just automatically gives them the link so they can pull it up from their phone. And if we can make it less steps and easier for them to do, we get more reviews. So that's the first thing is Google reviews. The second part is Facebook. Like it or not, that's what people are on as far as a platform more than anything else. And so we actually post content to their sites on a daily basis, on the weekdays. So we're putting out videos and recommendations and new research, all associated, not doctor talk, for the general public, to make sure that people understand that what their perception of chiropractors and what the reality of what chiropractors do, make sure we align that a little more so they understand that this is what an evidence-based chiropractor does. Here's who he treats, and here's how he does it.
Awesome. And you actually, I just want to make sure because you actually post it on their site on their Facebook page for them.
I like, is it Staples that has the easy button?
Yeah.
One of the commercials has the easy button. We try to make everything as simple as possible, meaning the easy button, click done.
Yeah.
When people use that service within ChiroUp, it's just done. They don't have to do anything. It's automatic.
So it's not, because I've had these services before. Oh yeah, we'll send you a bunch of stuff you post on your Facebook page, and it's like,
no, we do it for you.
It's like those 1 or 2 steps in the middle make it so ridiculous. That's awesome. That's incredible, man.
So that's another thing is that's not our business. That's not what I do. I don't care about Facebook posts. I don't care about any of that stuff. But the simple fact is, if we're going to change the perception of chiropractic, And that is a passion of mine, just like we talked about before this podcast.
Yeah.
My goal is to change the perception of chiropractic and what people think we do and the results they think we get. And Facebook is one of those things. So that's why we added that service. And ChiroUp, when it started, was not what it is now. It started as something very rudimentary. And then when we get new ideas or new thoughts or new functionality, people give us that information, and then we turn it into reality.
That's awesome. What's something that was generated by the marketplace that you offer?
We've got some cool things coming out in the next couple, probably about 2 months. There's a version 2 coming out that's going to have the ability. Well, I take it back. It's already functional. The ability to share protocols. So let's imagine you were at a seminar with Craig Levinson.
Okay.
We talked about plantar fasciitis. How cool would it be if you could actually take his seminar and then leave his seminar with exactly the education, videos on how he treats it, and his actual rehabilitation for that condition, and you could use it on Monday. So not only if you went to a factor class or an MPI class or any one of those, but you'd actually get that information and then you'd be able to utilize and practice. And that's where that knowledge transfer gap happens, is that we learn all these great things, how water therapy is great for osteoarthritis, but we can't use those things in practice. So we're trying to find a way to bridge that knowledge gap and make it easier to practice. So like at the very end, you can give your patient a hug and stop worrying about what are the 3 top tests for tarsal tunnel syndrome.
Wow. And so they could share those protocols, and it would be in a usable system on Monday. The usable system not being what you remembered from Sunday, and then you flew home and you had a couple drinks at the airport and woke up and saw your kids again, and all the things that do happen in the reality of being a human that also practices chiropractic.
Yeah, it's no longer how did you do that treatment, or maybe I don't remember that, or what exercise was that. It's already done.
Man, that's amazing. And so you got to be charging $1,500 a month for this, because that's about.
How much would you pay for that?
Yeah.
So that functionality is already coded. It's not readily available in ChiroUp yet. The MD Connect, the Google reviews part, the surveying, we survey everybody. All that stuff is already a part of ChiroUp. As far as that goes, we do charge $150 a month, and like I said, there's no contracts or commitments or anything like that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous how cheap that is for what you just talked about. Real quick, before we get back to our interview, I want to make sure that you know our website, clinicgymhybrid.com, and you know that we offer a series of high-impact lessons, 42 lessons, in fact, in our Accelerator Lite program. And the goal of that is to get you up and running and get that first few $1,000s of recurring revenue from memberships in your gym, all right? So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and head over to clinicgymhybrid.com. Again, that's clinicgymhybrid.com, and we will get you set up there with our Accelerator program. All right. And now let's get back to our interview. Thanks. So let me just dive in real quick, because I got a couple questions. You said there's like 97 common diagnoses that you guys cover?
Yes.
What did it start out as? I mean,
one.
Was the list? Well, I guess it always starts with one. Yeah.
Yeah. The first one was actually impingement syndrome of the shoulder. And after that, we got to 15, which took us about 6 months, probably even a little bit longer than that.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, impingement syndrome for the shoulder is fairly rare in the chiropractic office, right? I mean, like, I would have guessed it would have started with a low back condition and then moved into, something with the neck, and you know what I mean? Like, just, so why did it start there?
So most people don't know this, but about, I think it's 55 to 64% of all shoulder problems are impingement syndrome. And the number 2 diagnoses that walks into any medical office for musculoskeletal care is shoulder pain.
Wow.
So the shoulder is bigger than we think it is. It's kind of like thoracic outlet syndrome. We think it's rare. That's just because we're not diagnosing it. It's walking in all the time. We're just not really, treating it. It's kind of like BPPV. When someone's on your table and you get them up and they're like, oh, I'm a little dizzy. What do you say? You say, oh, hold on a second. Okay, you feeling good? Okay, I'll see you on Tuesday. Instead, it's having the ability to say, oh, you're a little dizzy. Let's take a look at that and let's treat BPPV. So it's the difference in treating back pain and neck pain versus actually digging in and treating everything that we can instead of just treating what they think we can treat. So it started off with the main ones. Obviously, we've got lumbar spine disc problems and foot hyperpronation and plantar fasciitis and all the big diagnoses are in there. And now we're slowly chipping away at each one of those. We actually took a little time off practice. We still practice the whole time, but we took a day off practice and did nothing but work on this for about 2 years to get it up and going. And that's part of it's the research. The other part is obviously coding it and functionality and designing it.
All the fun things.
Not so much. But yeah, it keeps on growing. The last one we just put, in fact, one comes out next month for gluteal tendinopathy.
Ooh, that's a good one.
We got some great stuff from some Australian groups. I got some great stuff from the ACA Rehab Council. We did our research review. We got some new videos, new exercise, new evaluations. And I learned stuff. It's fun. It's truly really a learning process.
Yeah.
When you can learn about a new thing and then you can actually implement it.
Yeah. I mean, again, being talking about humans and clinical practice, being a human is tough because we are biased. For example, I have a lumbar spine disc herniation, so I'm biased towards that diagnosis and others that complain of back pain. I mean, it's human nature. And then the treatment that worked on you, you being like people listening, it's oftentimes we think that is the best treatment for this condition. And it's like, maybe you were in the 14% of people that it works well on, but the 68% that respond better actually respond better to something else. So along those paths, like what was one of the more surprising things you discovered that kind of disagreed with Brandon Steele as a human, but you're like, man, the research says this is what it is. Like, all right, I'll publish this. I'll put it on our service.
So if anybody wants to see my little tirades, subscribe to our blog because, there's a lot of research that comes out, and regurgitating research is one thing, and anybody can really do that. But I think a lot of times research has to have only a couple variables they can put into a study, and they forget about everything else that goes into that. Kind of like we talked about the lumbar spine disc herniation. Yes, you got them out of pain, and yes, manipulation and traction worked for you, but what if you had manipulation, traction, and McKenzie? What if you had manipulation, traction, McKenzie, and some better patient education? So what we're finding now is that when we get the top performers, the people at the end of the year with the great results, is they have little pieces they just kind of add to what we already know. As far as the most surprising thing, I would say adding scapular stability. So obviously adding scapular stability and correcting scapular dyskinesis and glenohumeral conditions, whether they're squatting, doing some snatching, whatever it may be, that seems pretty easy for all of us to understand. However, now I'm starting to do scapular stability exercises for my lateral condylopathy patients, with my radial tunnel syndrome patients. I'm starting to work on their shoulder blade and shoulder mechanics when they're having these distal issues. And that's something that I learned that I was a little skeptical on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting better results with. And maybe it's not the very beginning of care, but I'm going to send them home with those exercises to get better results.
Yeah, I mean, if you're with all those conditions you just mentioned, in my mind, the clinical workup that I've seen, and again, I'm biased, is those people complained to their primary care, got some sort of NSAID or maybe Voltaren gel or something, some analgesic, and then went to the neurologist who ran a bunch of tests and offered no treatment, and they still have pain. That's what I'm hearing. And if you are known as the person that can get rid of the nagging upper extremity issues, whether it be at the shoulder, elbow, wrist, or hand, like, woo, man, you become a tool in somebody else's toolbox that wants to refer you a ton of people, I think.
Yeah, and the same goes that as a chiropractor, if you're getting better results than I'm getting, I want to know what you're doing differently. I'm not proud. I'm definitely, if you're doing something better, hey,
yeah,
we're going to start implementing that in my practice to get the best.
Did you have that experience? I mean, when you were looking at these bright stars or going, hey, oh, we're doing well. It takes us, I'm going to throw something out there. TOS takes us 12 visits and we're getting better than 90% relief. And then you looked at somebody else and were like, 6 visits and 96% relief. What the?
Yeah, and I think that the biggest addition to that was, well, I'll say 2. One was McKenzie Directional Therapy. I have no vested interest in that company. I'm not a speaker or anything like that. Adding directional preference to a lot of stuff has just been tremendous. In fact, the #1 video that is viewed as far as our system of subscribers is a cervical retraction exercise. So a lot of people are kind of gravitating towards that because it does get such great results. The other one is taping, and I don't mean to sound negative against taping because I have nothing against. In fact, I love a dynamic tape and I love kinesio tape, so I have nothing against the actual product. I just haven't seen great research to back up its effectiveness. But experience-wise and patient-wise, they get better results. So that's a situation that we don't necessarily recommend it through ChiroUp because we can't find enough evidence to support it for across the board. But clinically, do I use it? Yeah, and that's what makes us doctors, making the best decision for our patients.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, man, can you imagine having this resource? I mean, of course you're a fan of ChiroUp, but imagine if you weren't having this resource your first 2 years in practice.
You know what? So I'll go one step further.
It's almost like cheating at this point.
There's a lot of schools that don't necessarily like it because it is so easy to use.
Yeah.
We're designing it right now. We're going to hopefully have an app for students. Students get it for free. So
Oh God.
7
Oh my God.
Yeah, so 7 colleges already use ChiroUp. All their students use it in clinical.
So wait. If there's a student listening and their school hasn't recommended, but they can still go on your site and get it for free?
Yeah, so we've never marketed to a school. Schools usually contact us when it
Oh my gosh. I mean, if there's any students listening, you got to sign up for this like yesterday.
Yeah, we'll get a lot of we'll get 50 to 100 students sign up at a time. So we'll contact their administration and say, hey, you've got a lot of students using this, just so they're aware of the resources they're using. But yeah, we've had great success with that. In fact, all of our great ideas have come from students because what do they have? More time than money. So they have the time and the energy to give us the research, to give us the new emerging technologies, and then we incorporate it.
Wow. Man, because I'm sure have you taken the SFMA?
I did when it was FMS a long time ago when I was in school.
Okay.
Not the SFMA.
Yeah, it's fine. So here's my experience. It was funny because I took it when I was about 4 or 5 years into practice, and it made me a much better diagnostician. And that first workbook that I was given has probably like 40 names written in the columns of where I think I went wrong with that patient, you know? And so now I teach the SMA, and I always say, like, the only downside to this is you don't have enough energy, negative emotional energy around screwing enough people up. And so if you learn it in school, sometimes you don't value how great the education is, you know, because I don't know if you've had this experience, Brandon. You seem like you've done everything right, but there are people where I know that they were in worse shape when they left my office than when we started. And that experience drove me to find the best methods of treatment, the best methods of diagnosis. Had I not had that experience, success is a horrible teacher, you know? And I may have if I had too much early success, I may have been jaded and think, oh, everything I'm doing is right, you know, because you don't have anybody to compare it against. There is no national scoreboard of chiropractors and their success rate. I mean, except what you're telling me now exists in ChiroUp. So I hope anybody listening gets it. And I think that maybe it is easy. And I'm just wondering, you know, if it's better to have those times where you weren't able to get people better to understand why these protocols are so important and why a standardized system is so important.
2 things you just said was I truly believe one of the downfalls of chiropractic is that manipulation works so well. And people laugh when I say that, but if manipulation didn't work so well, we would really have to fight to actually classify people to get them into who's going to be best suited for manipulation. When in all actuality, manipulating spots that hurt does get a lot of people out of pain. As much as that pains me to say that, if nothing else, if you took everything away from me except manipulation, I'd probably still get 80% of people well.
You look at these jokers who do just manipulation for 2 minutes and like they're getting pretty good results. Not awesome, but pretty good.
Yeah, so I'm 100% on board with. I never want to get away from manipulation. But the second part of what you just said is that manipulation works so well for most clinicians because our job is not to treat patients, and that our job is to diagnose patients. And that if we get the right diagnosis and we know the right pathway of treatments to put them on, and manipulation is one of those pieces, and that's what we focus on as far as ChiroUp, then we get better results. And I think that if I could get every single patient out of pain in one visit, there would be a line from my door to your door of people waiting to see me, because that would be the ultimate of getting people out of pain in one visit. So we have to continue to work as diligent as possible to get those visits as low and low and low as possible. And some people may think that's counterintuitive, but if you get somebody out of pain in 3 to 4 visits, they're satisfied with the care, they're going to tell 50 other people about the care in your office. So that's where we're going as far as the perception of where we'd like to see chiropractic go.
Nice. So that they are like a hole-in-one provider.
Hole-in-one as far as the results.
I know. It's funny how there are certain terms in certain populations you go, that's not what I said. But yeah,
well,
one shot and you know, 1 shot, 6 kills kind of approach the thing, right? Like if I get rid of 3 complaints in one visit, it's amazing. And by the way, like, again, I personally don't think there's ever been a better time to be a chiropractor. Like, you look at the opioid epidemic is fuel into, like, that is fuel into our jets, man. Like, that is awesome. I don't want people to get injured or hurt from that. But when all these primary care physicians are going to be mandated, hey, you can't give opioids as a first line of defense, it's like, fantastic. What do we do? Right? Because I mean, that's the habit they've built.
I don't think a lot of chiropractors or even physical therapists in that respect know how to market all the great research that has come out. And unfortunately, you look at all the CDC, the FDA, Department of Defense, you look at obviously the articles in JAMA and Archives of Medicine, they're all pro-chiropractic. But the question is most of our chiropractors don't even know those are out there, as compared to their patients or the public around them. So there has to be some kind of avenue to make that happen. And that's why we do a lot of Facebook posts and we do the blog, because a lot of people share that information on their own website. But it's tough because you know how many articles come out on a monthly basis. Trying to decipher all those and to put them out there is it's a job. It's a company.
Luckily you, yeah. I mean, but that's a huge part of, I mean, it's not just you going through that, right? You have a team of people who that's all they're monitoring.
Yeah, and you can look at our board of directors. We have diplomates in every field as far as chiropractic goes, and rehab and orthopedics and occupational health and radiology. And they send us all the information so we can hopefully get the best information from all the different fields of study.
Awesome, dude. That's so awesome. You said you're building an app for patients and for providers. Is that right?
Yeah, so we've got a version 2 coming out. It's actually out. It's not actually live. So we're in the process of breaking it right now, which will happen. So we'll spend a month breaking it on our own. And then we have a group of 10 beta testers who are going to actually try to break it in their own office. So we're assuming by the end of June, maybe July, have it out for everybody else. But it's going to be much easier. We're prescribing condition reports in about 4 clicks, and the ability to send all that information to your patients, and that ability for that patient to actually look at their videos, look at their education from an app on their own phone. So that's going to be really neat. And the ability, right now you can put in your own, everything's customizable. You put in your own exercise, you put in your own content, you put in your own pictures. But this is going to be a little bit easier. It's not going to be housed with outside applications. Everything will be in-house. So if you want to take your own videos on how to do a proper squat, you take your iPhone out, you shoot it, upload it to ChiroUp, and the next patient you see, it's ready for them.
Wow, that's amazing. That's absolutely incredible. That idea is one of the reasons, let me talk about my sponsor real quick, because they build apps for people who are out there practicing. Sounds like you guys have a incredible app that's, and this is just going to be included in membership, by the way?
It is.
So it's not like an additional $2,500 or something?
No, it'll be branded to their clinic, and it comes along with the subscription. It's affordable.
Nice. Awesome. Well, our sponsor is Membrant. They help businesses like ours build an app specific to your company. So it'll be branded in the App Store under your clinic's name if you want to put that together, or maybe you want to have a education. So if you're somebody that works in the world of golf and you want to have a golf fitness app all designed around your logo and your content, then Membrant is the company to work with. They're actually the ones who built the Clinic Gym Hybrid app that should be out. We're in that same beta phase of trying to get people to break it. It's funny how you can't find these bugs on your own, and but you get 10 users in there and they'll find 100 of them. Yeah. So if you guys want to check out Membrant, it has a D in there, like Rembrandt, but membrant.com. Membrant.com is who built our app, and they can help you build an app as well. So Brandon, I know we're up against the clock here. You got about 3.5 minutes. I love hearing the stories of how this stuff developed. So from everything that you put together with ChiroUp over the last 3 years, what is the thing that gets you most excited? Like about, I don't know, just what's the thing that gets you most excited about what you found or what you empower chiropractors to do and the information you guys provide?
I won't use any names, but we have probably 3 to 4 chiropractors in this is probably the last year, that have contacted us, and we've worked a lot with them, and they converted their style of practice. And so they were practicing with a different philosophy. And they always thought it was too difficult to go in the other way, which is be more of the evidence-based, evidence-informed model. And I think that the beauty of those people, the space they have in my heart, is because they knew there was a better way. They just didn't know how to do it. And
Yeah.
I meet these people on a weekly basis. We do a lot of talking around the nation, and you hear people and they think it's too hard. And evidence-based practice is not about remembering all those. It's just having the tools accessible to make sure that you can do that when you need to do it, or
Right.
you can read about it when you want to read about it. And these guys have transformed their practice, and they send us their patient reviews and their Google reviews, and they're proud of the way they practice now. And I think that's probably my biggest win. The general consensus is, and my thought is, that I want to change the perception of chiropractic. But I think that I'm only one person, and Dr. Berlesman and ChiroUp is only one company, that it's going to take a lot more people to make sure we can change that perception, both at a community level, state level, and national level. So I think we have to change providers. And I think the students are moving in that direction. I think that the rationale is there to make that switch. Just like we talked about, the research is there, the need is there with the public. It just takes people having the right resources at the right time. And I think that we're one of them, but there's many more in our profession. And I think that as long as you're using the right resources and learning from the right mentors like yourself, and like the organizations you're a part of with SFMA, and what a great, wonderful way of diagnosing and treating us. People have to understand that that's the way to go, not just hammer down the high spots and pray for the best.
Couldn't have said it better myself, man. Thanks.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it. I know it was a pleasure meeting you at the last seminar. And
Yeah,
will you be in St. Louis?
I will be. Yeah.
We'll see you there.
All right. Well, that's good enough for today, man. So on behalf of Dr. Brandon Steele and ChiroUp, this is Dr. Josh Satterlee saying, go out there, maximize your license, and live the life you dream of. Thanks a lot for taking the time today, Brandon. Hey, how about that? Another great interview here on Clinic Gym Radio. Listen, if you're serious about starting up your own Clinic Gym Hybrid, then please go to clinicgymhybrid.com and check out our website there. We also love to get you involved in our accelerator program, which will walk you through step by step the 42 pieces you need to start your own Clinic Gym Hybrid. I'm Dr. Josh Satterlee. We'll talk to you later.